So you're a drama YouTuber, and you want to branch out to more serious topics. Where do you start? Well, the first important question to ask is why you want to make this change. After all, if you're unfamiliar with things like effort and research, then this transition probably feels like quite the undertaking. A responsible person might even realize their own limitations here and decide that this transition isn't worth it. Luckily for you, you're not one of those people. You're a drama YouTuber. You aren't here to do research, you're here to make content. And as a content creator, it's your job to turn everything, including politics, into content, into entertainment, and of course, into drama. Now, you might be wondering, how can you cover serious political issues that require a lot of research and consideration if all you're really good at is covering and, in many cases, inciting petty internet slap fights? How can you reconcile these two completely separate skill sets? And the great part is, you don't have to. You might not know it yet, but your talents as a drama YouTuber can give you a massive leg up in making political content too. All you need to do is learn how to apply them properly. Following my advice, you'll be able to use the clout that you've gained as a drama YouTuber to grow a platform as an online political commentator. Not only will I help you inflate your own credibility when talking about serious issues, I'll help you boil down those serious issues into nothing more than petty online drama slop that your audience is here for. After all, you've got to stick to what you're good at. So let me show you how even the most low-effort, uninformed content creator can join the esteemed ranks of the online YouTube political commentary space. Let me show you how to radicalize a Sloptuber. Covering politics is, in many ways, similar to making drama videos. At least there's a lot of overlap that should make this transition as easy as possible for you. First, politics never really stops, so it's a valid reason for you to keep churning out as much content as possible. If anything, it's encouraged. If you go around making 50 of the same slop videos about one guy until the end of time, people might say that you're beating a dead horse or that you have a weird obsession with them. But if you go and make 50 of those same videos about somebody else's politics, all of a sudden that's political commentary, and people have to take you seriously. Not only that, but the subject itself is perfect for somebody who lives and breathes drama. I mean, you're talking about how people think the world should be run. It's about the most divisive and dramatic topic that you could choose to cover. Because of this, politics is a breeding ground for conflict and drama. And this is where you flourish. Because you may not be interested in research or unpacking a deeply held societal belief, and to be honest, no one's expecting you to be. But those beliefs are held by people who you should have plenty of experience tearing down. But not all targets are created equally, so you need to know which people to tear down. After all, part of being a successful drama YouTuber is knowing how to constantly get into fights with other people while coming away looking like the good guy. Enter YouTuber Ethan Klein, who recently made a switch from pure drama content to also making political commentary videos. His YouTube career took off with cringe reaction and call-out videos towards other YouTubers that nearly everyone disliked at the time. YouTubers like Ethan Bradbury or Prank Invasion, who made lazy, low-effort prank videos, or Joey Salads, the scum of the earth. This was, and still is, an extremely effective way to boost your credibility in the eyes of your audience. By focusing exclusively on people who are worse than you, you're able to elevate yourself above them in comparison to look like the hero or the good guy in whatever online beef you're embroiled in, no matter how unfortunate your commentary may be. This is what allowed Ethan to continue a years-long one-sided hate campaign against Triller CEO Ryan Kavanaugh, including constantly bringing up his ex-wife's sex life in order to make him out to be some sort of cuckold.
I asked you if Ryan Kavanaugh had ever asked you to fuck his wife.
He does like people to fuck his wife, and so he can watch.
The bull's the one that, has sex with the wife, and then Ryan Kavanaugh is the one that masturbates in the corner and cries
Because he's fucking your ex-wife, dude.
and then all of a sudden he's like, yo, can I fuck your wife?
And this may seem like a weird choice, but remember, it won't matter to your audience if you spend all of your time obsessing over the sex lives of your enemies and their loved ones in
Brad nailing his wife.
far too much detail. If the person you're doing it is widely hated enough. If you can rely enough on the Schadenfreude, sorry, you're a drama YouTuber, you don't know what that word means. If you can rely enough on cringe, you'll basically always come out on top, because you'll never be able to look worse than an image you've created of somebody else. In the case of a drama YouTuber, the target justifies the approach, and if you're able to pick a target that's widely disliked enough, or manufacture an enemy by framing them negatively enough, there's no depth you can stoop to that your audience won't applaud you for, since the person that you're doing it to is deemed bad. Ergo, any action taken against them, no matter how embarrassing it may be for you, is good. And this has allowed Ethan to pull this same trick to this very day with another highly controversial streamer, Sneeko, or, to be more specific, Sneeko's girlfriend.
Bulls can't even begin to describe how hard Sneeko's girlfriend's pussy got annihilated.
And once again, it doesn't matter that Ethan is speculating about some random lady's sex life in
They should dab cocks up while their girls get railed.
far too much detail. The person that she's associated with is bad. Therefore, this action taken against her that maybe somewhat tangentially impacts her boyfriend's reputation is good. All of this is to say that the single most important thing to building your channel's reputation is knowing how to make yourself look good. Not with your personality or your content, but who you choose to engage with, who you can make look bad. If you pick the right enemies, there's basically no depth you can plumb that your audience will question you for. And it's the same, unsurprisingly, once you start making political content as well. Just pick a thorny enough personality and you can basically do no wrong. This is what allowed Ethan Klein to make his segue to politics, by picking controversial YouTubers and grilling them on their worldview, like he did with the Liver King, where he...
Now, do you have to have sex in a certain position because you're so big?
On second thought, let's look at a different example, like his debates with controversial political YouTubers like Pearl Davis and Steven Crowder, which gained him quite a bit of clout in the very well reputed online political debate sphere.
Somebody like you who's a little bit older, not as fertile, you are not a virgin. And also, I'll tell you something else. You like being in the foreground, which is not good for traditional marriages.
And was you saying you don't even have to think about it regarding the CDC? And I disagree with that. Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare.
And what's great about these debates is that they're an immediate demonstration of how useful it is to conduct a clout transplant from being a drama YouTuber to covering politics. When Ethan calls out someone like Pearl Davis for not standing by the trad wife ideology she pushes for online, or makes faux manly man Steven Crowder run away from a debate with an actual political commentator, Sam Cedar, Ethan isn't unpacking the complex dynamics of gender roles in modern society or analyzing CDC statistics. He's just using his tools as a drama react YouTuber to catch somebody in a gotcha moment and making them look bad. Except this time, you aren't focusing on someone who posted a cringe tweet you don't like, but somebody who's serving as a mouthpiece for a particular ideology. Using the same villain of the week format that every drama YouTuber does, except this time focusing it on a reactionary public figure in order to cultivate a progressive audience who wants to see these people get humbled. You don't want your methods to change. You've got cringe down to a science and shouldn't want to let it go so readily. Rather, it's the target of these methods that changes the meaning of what you're doing, even if at the end of the day it's the same drama slop that you've been making for a decade now. But to your audience, it has the appearance of serious political analysis, because the people that you're focusing on are those who hold explicit political beliefs, and an attack on that person, no matter how vapid or insubstantial it may be, is viewed as a somewhat serious critique of their ideology. But as easy as it is to dunk on creators like Steven Crowder and Pearl Davis, who everyone already hates to begin with, this approach won't work for everyone. If you're a drama YouTuber who defines themselves by their endless online feuds with other creators in order to eke out another scrap of content, chances are you'll eventually come into contact with somebody that people actually like. And if that happens, you need to know how to do that while coming away looking like the good guy. So, what do you do when you get into a beef with somebody that you should theoretically agree with? Well, by far the biggest obstacle to attacking a progressive content creator is trying to look like the good guy to other progressives. So far, you've probably been able to coast off of lazy content just pointing out that somebody's ideas are bad, and you haven't needed to go into much depth because it just feels self-evident and your audience already agrees with you. You don't need to explain to your audience of millennial white women why somebody like Pearl Davis is bad, because they're the primary targets of her harmful ideas. Likewise, you probably have some minority viewers who have been directly impacted by Steven Crowder's racist comedy. Even the Liver King is kind of a gimme once you look at how fucking gross his lifestyle is.
3 ounces of some fresh sashimi style testicle.
You don't need to explain why, the proof is in the pudding. The blood pudding. But it's another challenge entirely when you want to pick a fight with a creator who's a little bit more progressive, because now you're arguing with someone who you supposedly believe in the same things as. So you need to attack your ideological peer using the tools of a drama YouTuber without looking like you disagree with them too much. And there are a few ways you can do this. The first and easiest option is to go for a simple, petty, below-the-belt attack that's guaranteed to hurt your enemy's feelings without looking like you're disagreeing with what they're saying. A drama YouTuber classic if I've ever seen one. For example, if you're attacking an advocate for a specific ideology, you could minimize their efforts as little more than performative or disingenuous in order to immediately call their motivations into question. Look at how well Ethan Klein uses this method against his longtime enemy and one-sided topic of fixation, Hassan Piker.
People want to stand by their principles. They want to be these heroic advocates, but they don't want to risk fucking anything. Hassan should go to Gaza. And if he doesn't, he should be severely judged by his audience.
I've talked to Palestinian journalists, and they've like wanted me to come out, and I can't get any security assurances against Israel, obviously, and that's like the major reason why it is incredibly dangerous.
He's like, they couldn't offer me security assurances, so I'm not going. It's like, that's the whole fucking point. That's why it's brave to go to Gaza, because it's dangerous, because it's a war zone. I would have bet my goddamn house that he would never step foot in Gaza.
So, for those of you unaware, this is Ethan making fun of Hassan for not wanting to go to Gaza to report there in person due to a lack of safety assurances, which Ethan then frames as a thinly veiled excuse not to go, since, well, obviously a war zone is going to be dangerous, right? This argument is a new twist on an old classic, finding some kind of hypocrisy or shortcoming in someone's advocacy in order to make them out to be a hypocrite, except this time the argument isn't levied at some reactionary grifter like Steven Crowder or Pearl Davis, but at a progressive. But by using the same method, focusing entirely on the individual and your petty beef with them, you're able to completely sidestep the greater cultural context of why Hassan makes this decision. It's no longer a choice informed by Israel's well-documented targeted killing of hundreds of journalists, but something you can reduce to a personal attack. Paint him as a performative leftist and smear him with the same accusations of virtue signaling that reactionaries have relied on for years now. If you rely enough on cringe and personal mockery, you'll never have to actually engage with what the other person is saying or why they're saying them, which is great news for you if you can't really disagree with them. For example, what do you do if your enemy has a take that most people would find pretty agreeable? Like, I don't know, killing civilians is wrong. That's a message that you can't really disagree with publicly without looking like a monster. Or Asmongold.
I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They come from an inferior culture.
So you can do something else and attack the way that they say it, just like Ethan did when he attacked the repetitiveness of Hassan's advocacy for Gaza.
One of the most cynical methods Hassan deploys to sidestep any criticism is to deflect to the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
Focusing on that while there's an active fucking ethnic cleansing campaign happening. Genocide in Gaza. Complete genocide in Gaza. Ongoing active genocide in Gaza.
3,840 Palestinians have been ruthlessly slaughtered.
This technique is so powerful because everyone is afraid of being labeled as a genocide denier. Pierce Morgan, with decades of experience, immediately surrenders when the genocide card is pulled.
Once again, when you rely on cringe as an argument, you never have to actually think about the reason Hassan keeps on repeating the word genocide. That, of course, being that Israel is doing one. But by instead focusing on delivery and tone, Ethan is able to focus his energy almost exclusively on Hassan for how he talks about it, rather than unpacking the far more difficult conversation of what he's talking about and why, which in turn allows Ethan to get away with attacking someone for saying that killing civilians is wrong. So it's no longer the fault of Israel who are doing the killing, but the fault of the people protesting them for being really annoying about it. This is what makes YouTube drama such an effective way of punching above your weight class when it comes to creating political content. You never have to engage with a complex topic because all of your energy is focused on the individual and finding any way you can to tear them, and by extension, everything they're saying, down. You're essentially using the same tools that some anti-SJW YouTuber would have used back in 2016 to make fun of triggered feminists without acknowledging what they actually stand for. Hell, Ethan himself went through this exact phase back then. This shit works for a reason. By relying on cringe, you're able to make fun of basically anyone, regardless of what they care about, because you're making fun of them for caring in the first place. This is doubly effective if it's an ongoing situation that hasn't really faced any resolution despite the discourse and controversy surrounding it. It's one thing to attack someone based on stereotypes of preachy activism, but you can really twist the knife if the thing that they're protesting is still ongoing. This is what I like to refer to as the Gaza is saved response, where you point out satirically that somebody expressing distaste over Israel massacring civilians in the thousands is definitely doing something about it, rather than a hollow gesture or platitude. And while this may feel pretty damn ghoulish at first, it is an effective response if you want to hurt an activist's feelings, because you're relying on the same notions of virtue signaling and performativity that undermines everything that they stand for, and points out that for all of their posturing and slogans, no Palestinian lives have been saved, which is a pretty surefire way to upset someone who wants the killing to stop. This method was, quite notoriously, also used by Twitter personality and occasional video essayist Natalie Wynn of ContraPoints fame in her statement on Israel and Palestine.
Much of the online left spent all of 2024 single-mindedly focused on Palestine and the complicity of Democratic politicians in sending aid to Israel. This campaign had the following effects. 0 Palestinian lives were saved. Not one fewer bomb or bullet was fired by the IDF.
By focusing on the left's inability to stop the genocide rather than Israel committing it, Natalie was able to use Palestinian lives as a bludgeon against the online leftists that she's dedicated most of her online presence to getting into petty Twitter arguments with for years now. And it's the same approach, of course, for Ethan Klein.
It's really something how everybody's activism these days is just shitting on me. Every time someone hates on me, a fucking PETA falls from the sky in Gaza or something, apparently.
This is a perfect demonstration of this method in practice, where Ethan points out that any criticism directed towards him in his coverage of Gaza is pointless, since it does nothing to resolve the famine that they're currently experiencing. Not only that, but by focusing on the individuals criticizing him and the ineffectiveness of their activism, Ethan is once again able to divorce these criticisms from the larger cultural conversation that they're taking part in. By focusing purely on the inability of his critics to save Palestinian lives, Ethan once again centers his argument on his opponents and how they make their argument, rather than what they're arguing against, which allows him to redirect the blame away from Israel, who once again are the ones doing the killing, and instead place the fault purely on the activists for being unable to stop it. This was also used to great effect quite recently, after Ethan announced a lawsuit against pro-Palestinian YouTuber Noah Samson. Ethan's employee Harley Morenstein asked Noah why he would spend so much time fundraising for legal costs when that money could be going towards Palestinian relief instead.
Just pay it yourself and let everyone else donate for an actual cause, like MS, or I don't know, Palestine. You make thousands on your Patreon and barely upload. This is lazy. Begging for money so you don't have to actually work in the middle of a genocide is crazy.
Once again, we see how effective it is to use the lives of genocided Palestinians as a bludgeon or punchline to hurt the feelings of the activists trying to defend them. It doesn't matter that the only reason this money isn't going towards Palestinians is because Ethan is suing Noah and therefore siphoning this money away from the people who could be receiving it instead. Noah is framed as the one failing to save them. Therefore, these Palestinians' deaths are on his hands, which you can use as a point of attack against him. And this is genius, because you can basically hide behind the Palestinians you're diverting money from in order to evade criticism, using them as human shields to win an online argument. Or to put it another way, you're basically doing what the Green Goblin did, forcing Noah's audience to choose between someone they care about and a bunch of innocent children. I guess this is what Ethan means when he talks about going Goblin mode.
I've gone fucking Goblin mode over way less. I'm the fucking Green Goblin.
Through the lens of internet drama, any action, no matter how villainous it may seem, can be justified so long as it helps you get a win over your opponent, even if it inadvertently supports diverting aid from a starving population. For example, what do you do if your opponent condemns the destruction of aid meant for these starving Palestinians?
The other people back there are the vile scumbags that fucking are destroying the food, the aid on top of the fucking aid trucks, the food trucks that are already being blocked from going into Gaza anyway. Oh my God, these inbred fucking douchebags in the background, dude.
Well, you can condemn the way they say it.
These are just fucking benign dudes. Just, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. It looks like they're doing charity or something. It looks like they've got water or boxes or something, like they're helping. And he's going, oh, look at these inbred fucks. It's like, bro, who are you? Who are you? Like, how dare you?
So again, by focusing on how Hassan criticizes these settlers for destroying aid boxes meant for starving Palestinians, and even going so far as to frame them as some benign activists, Ethan is able to reframe Hassan's condemnation of genocide as some form of bigoted attack against Israelis. And what's great about this is that you can do it without appearing to support them in their genocidal actions, since your focus is exclusively on how you can tear down your leftist opponent for being mean towards them.
By the way, even if they're doing whatever bad, you're still calling Jewish people inbred repeatedly.
Ethan Klein described it best during his debate with Hassan on this exact topic.
I don't like your repeated use of the word inbred against Jews?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're running defense for Kahanists who are literally
No, I'm not defending them. I'm attacking you.
By focusing on global politics through the extremely narrow lens of personal beef and making every single argument through that lens, Ethan is able to essentially get away with attacking every pro-Palestinian content creator he can get his hands on based on how they protest, but never come away looking like he's supporting what they're protesting, which, to reiterate, is Israel's mass murder of tens of thousands of people. Isn't that clever? Now, if you're still new to drama content, you might be thinking that this isn't a stroke of genius to help you avoid any and all accountability for the type of content you create, and is actually a pretty damn wormy way of getting out of having to stand by something. But that's the point. The single best thing you can do when causing arguments for a living is never allowing yourself to be backed into a corner, never being sincere. Sincerity is fatal for many drama YouTubers because at its core, sincerity requires you to care about something and outwardly commit to it. And that commitment means that you have to stick to that one thing, which can box you in and leave you vulnerable to attack based on it. This is why it pays to be a drama YouTuber when talking about serious topics, since you aren't viewed as somebody who should or would know about something or have to stand by what they say. But a leftist YouTuber is. And that's the key difference that you can use to your advantage. Any leftist content creator worth their salt is going to be judged based not just on what they believe, but how committed they are to those beliefs, how they act on them. They believe in something, and now they have to stick to that. Any flaw or shortcoming, no matter how superficial, can be weaponized against them and turned into a grifter allegation. Meanwhile, what are the expectations of a drama YouTuber? Getting into online fights for the goofs and the gaffs, and that's it. Nobody expects you to be an expert. If anything, your audience will appreciate the fact that you spoke up at all, regardless of how much damage you end up doing because of it. Look at Ethan. Any shortcomings in how he advocates for Palestine, or any way in which he materially harms the pro-Palestinian movement, are just the acceptable casualties of his primary function as a YouTuber, which is to pick fights with people. You can't expect him to have consistency or be responsible. He's a drama YouTuber, an uwu small bean who goblin moded too close to the sun and ended up siding with the second Holocaust in order to win an online argument. It's not his fault. Meanwhile, Hassan is labeled a performative fake leftist if he refuses to literally fucking martyr himself for Palestine, since that's who he claims to care about. There's a fundamental imbalance in what's expected of a drama YouTuber versus what's expected of a political YouTuber, with one standard being much harder to meet than the other, giving you all of the power. And By relying on this double standard, you can effectively weaponize the bigotry of low expectations to constantly hold your opponents to a higher standard than you yourself could ever pretend to care about meeting, because ultimately you don't have to care. They do. And since they have to care, we may as well talk about the final evolution of this political drama content spiral that we found ourselves in. We've spoken a lot about how to attack someone who cares, back them into a corner, question the limits of their concern and their integrity, and even made fun of them for caring too much. But now we need to flip the script, attack these leftist content creators using their own language against them, and basically try to outwoke the woke. So, let's talk about why caring is bad. If you followed my instructions up until now, you'll have been able to attack these leftist content creators while still maintaining a progressive audience. Remember, none of what we've done so far has outright gone against these people's opposition to genocide, just their approach. Don't get me wrong, you're still calling them cringe for not wanting innocent civilians to be killed, but in a woke way, since your main focus is on how they're too dedicated to that position. And this framing is important because your audience will still view your opposition to these activists and their advocacy as something progressive, a perception that we have to cement if we're to have any chance of winning this online drama. So you need to go on the attack. Convince your progressive audience that opposing these pro-Palestinian content creators isn't just acceptable, but is the morally correct position. And there are a few ways you can do this. To start with, if you've grown a platform by attacking conservatives and reactionaries, you've likely courted and cultivated an audience of American liberals who come pre-aligned with certain ideologies and causes like feminism and LGBT rights. There are others, but these two are by far the most popular, meaning that you have the widest base of support for when you use them as a bludgeon to attack your critics. For example, let's say you wanted to paint your enemy as some kind of sexist or chauvinistic pig. You could, for example...
Hassan's the type of dude who watches himself in the mirror when he has sex.
Oh, not this again. Let's look at another example, shall we? Such as Ethan Klein's employee, Kate Gorton, the girl with a microphone, who uses feminist rhetoric as a bludgeon to attack Ethan Klein's pro-Palestinian critics.
And now, for even more misogyny on the left, here is Noah Samson using a misogynistic word for a man.
But yeah, I mean, he's a fucking... I don't like he's a pussy. That's the whole thing. He's a huge pussy.
That is white male leftism right there.
So again, while it seems like the language here should be the biggest concern, what actually makes this argument so powerful is that it's levied against the person using it, a leftist who should know better than to call somebody a mean word for threatening to sue them. And this imbalance of expectation allows Kate to hyper-focus on somebody calling Ethan a pussy while completely ignoring the time that Ethan himself directly called multiple women a
fucking bitch. Fucking bitch. She's a fucking bitch. Denims is a dumb fucking bitch. Denims, the dumb fucking bitch that I hate. I can call her a bitch. I can call her a horrible person, but I would never do that.
So now he has to be, performative male about it instead of just not saying it.
I have to admit, I slipped up the other day.
It is.
I called Taylor Lorenz the dealer.
I know, but she is.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want as long as you acknowledge it.
I do regret saying that. I don't like using the dealer
but you reserve it for the special cases.
I know it's bad, but that's why I said it.
Again, the only reason that Kate is able to make this argument is because this podcast is hosted by leftists, so any imperfection in their approach is heavily weighted against them. Ethan, on the other hand, gets away scot-free since the women he's talking about are people that he's in a drama with, and as a drama YouTuber, he can stoop as low as he wants since it's just content. So you end up with this really cool dynamic where you can weaponize feminist talking points against the feminist because they threw a fraction of your own energy back at you. Which is awful. No one deserves that kind of harassment. But this is just a small, silly example of how you can weaponize progressive causes and talking points against your enemies. There are also far more serious topics that you can use as well, to the point that one of those leftist content creators would insert a content warning right about now. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about how you can weaponize victims of sexual violence in order to win an online drama. It's no secret that sexual assaults and rapes were committed during the October 7th attacks on Israel and were a major topic of discussion during its immediate aftermath, most famously in the New York Times article publicized shortly after the attacks called Screams Without Words, which detailed accounts of sexual violence committed by Hamas against Israeli citizens and inspired many calls for retribution against Palestine. But while these crimes were undeniably committed, the extent to which they were committed, including the accounts mentioned in said article, is a different story entirely, one with no clear answer thanks to questionable journalistic practices that informed the article, combined with Israel's blocking of external investigations into the matter. And all of these factors combined into the following set of circumstances. The attacks happened, people are hearing horrific stories, and nobody knows what to believe. There is a lot of uncertainty surrounding these events, unfortunately. Well, unfortunate for everyone except for you, since you can use this uncertainty as a bludgeon to launch a feminist critique against anybody questioning Israel's motivations to justify their actions. For example, if someone were to say that, I don't know, sexual violence happening doesn't justify wiping out an entire population of people.
Once again, this does not mean that sexual assaults did not occur on October 7 or after. It's very common, and the likelihood of it happening on either October 7 or after October 7 is still high. Many hostages have records of saying two different things. Also, how are you sure Israel didn't force them to lie? That's ridiculous. By the way, none of which justifies Israel's actions. Doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much.
You could take that argument and reframe it as somebody minimizing, if not outright denying or justifying these things happening.
Part of running defense for Hamas is downplaying the violence, specifically the sexual violence, which he's done a lot of.
Doesn't matter if fucking rapes happen on October 7. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. The Palestinian resistance is not perfect. The Palestinian resistance is not perfect.
And this is an extremely effective tactic for a number of reasons. The primary one being that you don't have to give a fuck about victims of sexual violence in order to make it. Look at Ethan Klein. He's done things like supporting a show called Ultimate Rape Review.
You know what was playing in my head? The rape, the URR.
Ultimate Rape Review? They'll be doing an Ultimate Rape Review, actually.
Oh my God.
Officially.
Defended his sister-in-law's childhood abuser because he had a falling out with her.
Justice for Mr. Riney.
What does that mean?
That's the teacher that she said essayed her in school.
And, most importantly, denied research conducted by CARE into sexual violence committed by IDF troops against Palestinians.
Palestinian females freed from Israeli detention said more than 15 fellow Palestinian women were raped by Israeli interrogators to force them to confess. And that's a huge claim. 15 Palestinian women were raped. My only problem is that there's like literally no source to this.
But despite all of this, his fans still support him as he uses this victim's testimony as a bludgeon to win an online argument.
You're acting like this never happened, that
You're
it's
mentioning
exaggerated,
my
that everybody's lying,
in the
that
video
Israelis
that
are
you
just
played.
inherently evil monsters that are responsible for everything
Ethan,
bad that's ever
you
happened. Listen
acknowledged-
to her.
Ethan,
Cry,
you
or to be
know.
sad.
Listen to her words.
Ethan,
I had no one to comfort me and was forced to act
Listen
nice
to my
the person who had
words.
just
Listen to
sexually
this
assaulted
victim.
me
Show her
in the
some
most
respect, Hassan.
horrifying way.
Oh, it's so gross the way you're
Not a day
doing
goes
this.
by-
Which, when you think about it, is the most important factor in all of this. It's such a thorny and emotionally charged topic that you can performatively throw it in somebody's face as an attack and they can't argue against you for fear of looking bad.
You really have no problem speaking over a rape victim when they're Israeli.
And your audience will be so distracted by what you appear to be doing, defending a victim, that they'll completely overlook the fact that you're actually cynically appropriating this and every other victim's trauma without any regard for what they or anyone else went through in order to throw it in your enemy's face to win a one-sided internet obsession. It's foolproof, and this weaponization of feminist rhetoric is hardly limited to the events of October 7th. In fact, after a joint American-Israeli bombing of Iran back in June of 2025 that killed over 400 civilians, Ethan Klein, Ethan's wife and podcast co-host, described the female IDF pilots who conducted the bombings as heroes. Once again, we see the effectiveness of dressing up certain atrocities through the lens of identity politics. Female IDF pilots are independent violent, liberated heroes fighting back against an oppressive regime by bombing the civilians living under it. This framing is so effective that it's observable in broader American politics too. For example, the more recent bombing of Iran by joint Israeli and American forces in March of 2026, during which the Shajar Tayyebe Elementary School was struck, killing 168 people, with 110 of them being school children. When asked about this bombing, Republican politician Matt Schlapp claimed, "If we hadn't bombed Iran, they would still be alive but in a burqa."
He just wanted to insult Muslims.
It's hypocritical to say that these attacks harmed women and children when those women and children, the young girls that you reference, would live a life in a barbaric, unequal society behind a burqa.
This comment represents the end goal of pinkwashing, where any action taken, no matter how extreme or unjustifiable it may seem to be, can be excused so long as it's framed through a progressive lens. Not only that, but it's a great avenue of attack against Israel's critics, since it allows you to frame them as not caring about these issues. You can see how well Ethan Klein uses this approach against Hassan Piker, who vocally condemns these strikes on Iran.
The Iranian diaspora has that same like Zionist attitude that I think will cook them in the long run, where they just straight up will be like, no, you have to understand, like, if you don't fucking slaughter my grandparents, I will kill myself.
Hassan is frustrated that the entire Persian diaspora is happy that the Ayatollah is dead. It's making his job as a propagandist very difficult. What do your Persian friends think about being called Zionist for wanting to depose the man that just slaughtered 40,000 of their own?
This is another great part about employing what I like to call atrocity math during these situations. You get to balance a horrific action, in this case the bombing of Iranian civilians, with the supposed nuanced reason that these strikes are justified in the first place. Not only that, but you get to make fun of your online political opponent for not seeing that nuance, and make fun of them for having an overly simplistic view of things.
Chiefly war. What is it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
That's not exactly true, though, is it? Deposing tyrannical governments, right? I mean, that's a good. That's been historically a pretty good use for it.
It's so nuanced, guys. You don't get it. There's such a complicated reason that we had to blow up these schoolgirls. Any action can be justified and defended from criticism, so long as you dress it up in a cause that looks progressive enough, since this then makes it impossible to criticize these actions without also appearing to criticize the broader progressive ideology you've used as justification for them. It's incredibly versatile, and you can do it for just about anything, like LGBT rights. For example, if a queer person criticizes you for your inadvertent support of the Israeli government, you could point out that Hamas, the supposed target of all of Israel's attacks, wouldn't take too kindly to their existence.
Enjoy your drugs and being a sex worker. Hamas would kill you on the spot.
And this is great as a thought-terminating cliche, since you can basically apply that anybody who opposes you for criticizing these leftists is inadvertently complicit in their own destruction. Don't worry about the fact that you're basically fantasizing about a gay person being murdered because he disagreed with you. That's only a problem when Hamas does it. And speaking of Hamas, you might think that it's a bit of a bad look to make this argument at all, since equating this person's defense of Palestinians with a defense of Hamas might make it seem like you're lumping these two groups together. But this is what you want to do, since it gives you an ironclad defense against any minority leftist who criticizes you. Not only that, but it's a great way of keeping your audience on your side if they don't have a solid grasp of what intersectionality is. Now, because you've lumped all Palestinians under the umbrella of scary Muslims who want to murder gay people, you'll have attracted your audience of white liberals in the LGBT community who think that Israel's actions are justified if it somehow helps to fight homophobia. Don't worry about the fact that homophobia is a problem everywhere in the world, and not just in the population that's currently facing systemic extermination. You need to get in there and pit two marginalized communities against each other. In fact, this approach is so effective that Israel themselves have relied on it to whitewash their actions, leading to this image that they posted in November of 2023 of the apparent first pride flag ever raised in Gaza. Wow, you did it, Israel. You saved the gay Palestinians. But in all seriousness, weaponizing progressive identity politics is extremely effective when it comes to laundering Israel's reputation. attacking pro-Palestinian content creators, since it implies that any criticism or opposition to Israel's action is an attack on those identities. And bear in mind, all of this is with regards to weaponizing other people's identities in order to win an internet drama against a progressive creator. We haven't even scratched the surface of the most effective angle you can take, which is to use your own identity and minority status as a weapon. Look at how Ethan Klein does exactly this, by using his own Jewish heritage and marriage to an Israeli woman as a shield against the pro-Palestinian content creators who criticize him for how he discusses Israel's actions.
We know what's the right answer, and why can't you just decide to say the right answer? It's like they don't have to deal with the complexities of being born there. Like, don't you think it would be so much easier if we were just like, yeah, no, fuck Israel forever?
So once again, we see how useful it is to use identity politics in this way. Ethan doesn't have to answer to his critics or change his coverage of Israel and Gaza, since he has family living there and even lived there himself for a while. His attacks against pro-Palestinian activists, as well as his inadvertent whitewashing of Israel's actions, are therefore framed through the lens of a minority's lived experience and personal stake in these events. By doing this, you can couch your actions and attacks against progressives in progressive language and identity politics to lend them an air of credibility or nuance, which once again allows you to go on the attack and make fun of your opponents for not seeing these nuances, elevating your own arguments by framing them not as lived experience, but as expertise. Think back to March 2025, when Hasanabi stated that he wouldn't go to Gaza because of a lack of safety assurances, as well as making fun of him for being performative for not wanting to die. Ethan Klein also had this to say.
I don't think you guys understand Israel. It doesn't work like that. It's dangerous in a war zone. Right. Not because Israel will target him.
So once again, we see the language of progressivism being used to elevate somebody's lived experience as a shield against criticism. Ethan Klein was born and raised in Israel and served in the IDF, first as a secretary and then taking part in raids for valid reasons.
So one time I wanted to go with them just to experience it.
Why, you just were all of a sudden had an urge to go with them?
I just wanted to see what it's like.
Regardless, Hila clearly has a lot of experience in Israel and its military, which she can then use for her dismissal of Hassan's fear of journalists being targeted by the IDF, and her audience will lend more consideration to her lived experience that informs this perspective. Just try to ignore the 200+ journalists killed by Israel's military up until that point since October 7th, including on the day Hassan made this statement, as well as the additional 60+ journalists that they've murdered since then. Just don't worry about any of that. A woman who served in that same military has said that they don't work that way. I trust her. You need to be careful with this though, because identity politics is a double-edged sword. The same minority identity that you use to give your own arguments more credibility can also be used to discredit you, like if somebody who shares your identity uses that to disagree with you entirely. So you need to preempt that, invalidate this competing identity, and make sure that your perspective is the only correct one. Look at how masterfully Ethan Klein handled this when presented with the opinions of Jewish Voices for Peace, who explicitly condemn Israel's actions in Gaza.
The reason why I brought up Jewish Voices for Peace and other groups using this as well, like Jews themselves in America using this anti-Zionist slogan, indicates that this slogan isn't one that is about the evisceration of Jews. If that was the case, then they wouldn't use it.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that.
By comparing Jewish Voices for Peace with capos, the Jews who collaborated with Nazis during the Holocaust, Ethan is able to use the worst insult a Jewish person can use against another Jewish person in order to dismiss basically any and all disagreement or conflict that comes from within his own in-group, letting him frame his perspective as the only true representation of Jewish feelings, and anybody who disagrees with him being a collaborator in their own destruction. And this construction of Palestinian liberation as an existential threat towards his own Jewish identity allows him to go on the attack against pro-Palestinian advocates once again, claiming that the phrase "from the river to the sea" is an exterminationist dog whistle that cries for the annihilation of all Israeli Jews.
From the river to the sea essentially means the state of Israel is going bye-bye. When Jews around the world hear someone say Israel shouldn't exist, from the river to the sea, which is how it's interpreted, they see that, again, I keep bringing this up, they see it as a genocide.
Okay.
I'm just telling you the Jewish perspective.
Through weaponizing identity politics, the feelings of a Jewish man born and raised in California are prioritized over those of an oppressed minority currently facing extermination in Gaza. And this prioritization of Ethan's identity allows him to frame his pro-Palestinian opponents as genocidal anti-Semites, something he recently doubled down on in his lawsuit against another pro-Palestinian activist, Noah Samson.
Zionism is Nazism. It's an ethnic supremacist, expansionist, colonial ideology. You can't have Zionism without genocide and ethnic cleansing. That's the end goal of the project. It's what it is.
Defendant Noah Samson advocates that the only solution to genocide of Palestinians is the genocide of Israelis.
What's really genius about Ethan's approach here is that it completely distracts from his own storied history with discussing Jewish extermination, such as when he claimed that if there was ever a second Holocaust, Ben Shapiro, a conservative Jewish political commentator, should be the first in line for the gas chamber.
I was just gonna say, if there's another Holocaust, if they start rounding up the Jews again, I hope Ben gets gassed first.
Something which, in a stroke of genius, he then also used his Jewish identity to try and escape criticism for saying. All of this goes to show the effectiveness of weaponizing your identity as a tool for YouTube drama against progressive content creators. Not only can you use it as a shield by framing criticism of your actions as an attack on your entire ethnic and religious group, you can also use it as a weapon to lend credence to your attacks against others. Through Ethan's efforts, framing everyone else as a token collaborator or anti-Semite who must therefore be ignored or silenced, he has elevated his perspective on Jewish issues to be the Jewish perspective, and lent credence to his attacks against his opponents through this lens, no matter how ill-advised those attacks may be.
They're gonna go in the store and the only option they have is fucking Sabra, and that sucks that that's the only option, right? Arab communities and distribution facilities are not widespread across the US, so what are they left with? They're left with a common...
He's also doing, like, once again, like almost a form of Holocaust denialism.
Now this one may seem confusing for a few reasons. Firstly, because I thought we were supposed to be condemning hummus, but secondly, because this may seem like such a disrespectful thing to do, comparing the victims of the Holocaust and a denial of what they went through to not liking a specific brand of hummus. But this type of language is a necessary evil to beating these progressives. Everything has to be approached through this extremist lens, to the point that even calls for a genocide to end become genocidal towards you and your religion. You might think it's more anti-Semitic, more dangerous to Jewish people to do this, to conflate Zionism, all of Israel's war crimes and atrocities with all Jewish people, since it makes them out to be some horrific, bloodthirsty, murderous religion and contributes to an actual growth in anti-Semitism. But the reality is, this is no different to what you've been doing this whole time. Up until now, you've pulled out all of the stops. Queer issues, feminism, even the victims of an ongoing genocide are nothing more than a cudgel for you to use in an online argument. A tool to be readily used and discarded as you see fit. It should be easy for you to do the same with your own identity. Hell, it works for Israel. They've used the threat of anti-Semitism and the extermination of Jews as a justification for their atrocities since their very foundation. It works for a reason. And if it works for them, there's no reason it shouldn't work for you too. And this brings me to my final point. Despite everything you've done, despite all of your attacks against pro-Palestinian content creators, dehumanization of murdered Palestinians as little more than terrorists, and minimization of Israel's war crimes in order to attack their critics, despite all of that, you still haven't explicitly supported Israel. But you have learned a lot from them. So, to round off this video, I'd like to go over all of the ways that Israel justifies their actions and look at how you too can incorporate these methods in your online beef in order to attack pro-Palestinian content creators using our role model Ethan Klein as an example. Number 1, weaponize the legal system to silence your opposition. In the same way that Israel and its supporters try to prosecute anybody who openly challenges them, including violently arresting pro-Palestinian protesters, you too can conduct lawfare and sue other YouTubers for defamation if they criticize you for your coverage of Israel's actions, much like Ethan Klein did when he announced a lawsuit against pro-Palestinian content creator Noah Samson because of a critical YouTube video. Now, this may rightfully be seen as a pretty cowardly move that's only really employed by a rich loser with no leg to stand on. So you need to justify it with point 2, which is to equate all criticisms of you and your actions with anti-Semitism. We've already covered this at length when it comes to slogans like "from the river to the sea," but you can also spread far more dubious accusations of Jew hatred as well. For example, in the same way that the IDF claims to have found Arabic copies of Mein Kampf in bombed out Palestinian nurseries to justify bombing said nursery, and more recently made the same claims about their attacks on Lebanon, you too can take direct inspiration from this and Photoshop copies of Mein Kampf into your enemy's Instagram story in order to smear them as an anti-Semite. And speaking of raided houses, point 3, use your platform to try and encourage and justify raids on people's houses based on who they're supposedly associated with. Just like Ethan Klein did when he openly and baselessly accused Hassan Piker of housing an illegal undocumented migrant worker at a point in time that ICE was raiding people's houses for this exact reason.
I met her. She's a lovely Hispanic lady. She doesn't speak English, she cleans and cooks, works full time, I believe. Hassan grunts and uses Google to talk to her. I think she's undocumented, which is... I don't know that for sure, but that was my impression, because he said he got the recommendation from someone he knows. And not that there's anything, in my opinion, wrong with hiring undocumented workers.
This tactic is also commonly used by the IDF, who use shaky accusations of guilt by association with terrorists to justify raiding people's houses and kidnapping random Palestinians. Oh, and would you look at that? Hila Klein actually did that too.
You see people in the house, and then it's like the soldiers just walk into the house and look through their shit and find guns. And
did they arrest anyone that night?
They did.
Did they bring it in the same car with you?
No.
And in case you receive any criticism for this, you can once again take inspiration from the IDF and smear the person whose house you raided as a potential terrorist to justify your actions.
Did Hila not volunteer to go to the West Bank on a raid because she was bored?
We don't know what that guy did, though. We don't know what
so he could have been
raid was for.
He could have been a vicious terrorist
What if
monster,
he
is
killed
what you're
people?
saying.
Yeah. What if he killed people? Of course.
Just try to ignore the fact that if you don't know that he was a terrorist, there's just as likely of a chance that your wife kidnapped some random innocent man.
Okay, fine. My wife's a terrorist, bro. What the fuck?
And speaking of targeting innocent people, this segues pretty nicely to point 4. Not only can you justify raids against your direct enemies, you can also mobilize your army of foot soldiers to attack and harass their families too. In the same way that Israel targets and threatens the families of those who speak out against them, you could hop on stream and broadcast the face, name, and location of one of your online critics to your audience of thousands in order to punish them for criticizing you.
This guy's for real. Look this guy up. Here he is. If anyone, let's see if I can identify him at all.
Oh shit, that weenie truck he's in front of, that's in...
Here's his mom. I'm not gonna click that for her. I'm not, you know what? Fuck him. Here's your mom. I wonder if she knows what you do on social media.
To the point that his mother then receives threats of sexual violence and his sister's school receives a bomb threat, both of which are, coincidentally enough, also systemically employed by the Israeli military. And finally, if all else fails, or if you find yourself facing less and less support for these actions, you could align yourself with fascists and white supremacists who also smear Palestinian activists and Muslims as terrorists in order to garner support from their fan base. In the same way that Israel has reached out to and aligned with Tommy Robinson, who's well known for spreading Islamophobic conspiracy theories, you too can align with content creators like Asmongold because you share a common enemy, ignoring the fact that he too has also platformed and openly endorsed anti-Semitic conspiracy theories from a neo-Nazi.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
If you follow my instructions to the letter and do all of these things, you too can eke out a few more views and crown yourself the grand champion of a one-sided YouTube obsession. More importantly than that though, your audience, trained to view all of these actions through the lens of YouTube drama, will completely ignore the broader implications of everything you've done up until this point. By aligning yourself so closely with Israel's to spite your enemies, by openly minimizing their war crimes for a quick dunk, framing it as cringe or embarrassing to care about genocided Palestinians, and even going so far as to justify these things with a progressive slant, you have been able to push the very ideologies that your audience thinks they stand against to them, selling them a form of fascism under podcast aesthetics, or FUPA for short, which, thanks to your efforts, they have now willingly and happily embraced as part of their worldview. And if you can do all of that, if you can convince your audience that you aren't supporting Israel by doing all of this, if you can convince them that all of this was in the interest of winning some YouTube drama and doesn't endorse the very ideologies that seek to destroy them and also you, and most importantly, if you can convince yourself of these same things, then congratulations. You have now successfully radicalize the Sloptuber. If you want to beat those performative leftists and actually do something to help the people of Palestine, make sure to donate to the attached fundraiser for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. The best way to own a progressive is to do their own cause better than they can, and I can think of no better way of doing this than by donating money to the children of Palestine. The PCRF aims to support Palestinian children by providing medical aid, psychological support and refuge to the children who've been devastated by Israel's actions in Gaza, and I can't think of anybody who deserves more support right now than these children. Please make sure to donate whatever you can, and I'll be sure to do the same. If you have any feedback on my advice and how it's helped you grow a platform and a brand, please feel free to reach out and give me some feedback. I'm always looking for suggestions on how to help YouTubers grow their channels and focusing on what's really important, which is, of course, drama slop. That's all for this time, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.